I still remember the first line like a slap in HOA trying to tell me to host the governor on land I owned and me laughing so hard a squirrel jumped off the fence. It sounded ridiculous until it didn't, and then it got ugly fast. If you think neighborhood drama is petty, sit with me for a bit. This one eats its cookies with subpoenas. It began on a Friday that felt ordinary. I'd wrapped a round of edits on a travel piece kettle, gone cold, coffee in hand, watching long gold light slide down the eastern slope, 15 acres, my patch of quiet pines, and no eyebrow-raising lawn signs. No HOA signs. No leaf blowers at dawn. Just me and a stubborn property line that legally was mine. I walked down to the mailbox like I always do, gravel crunch under boots, and there it was, a cream envelope with a glossy insignia, Summit Glade Estates Homeowners Association. I blinked. I wasn't in that association. My land bordered them like a polite but distant cousin. Nothing contractual, nothing theirs. Curiosity beat caution. I opened it. Please prepare your guest accommodations and landing area by tomorrow at 2 p.m. Our incoming delegation includes VIPs from the governor's office and the Environmental Council. The memo read like a polite command. I laughed out loud, that short, startled laugh that makes birds and squirrels rethink their life choices. I didn't have a guest house, I didn't have a helipad, I had a stone terrace and a fire pit and a stubborn private sign on the gate. On the back, a handwritten P.S. Call me if you have concerns. Karen Stample, HOA President. There was a number. I dialed. She answered on the third ring, syrupy and polite. Michael. Yes, this is Karen. We assumed you'd be honored. I said I'm not. She did the thing people do when they've had practice sounding offended and entitled simultaneously. Well, she said, we recently had a board vote. Your property visually suits our needs during emergencies. We thought you'd cooperate. Listen, I don't like being volunteered for someone else's optics plan. I told her flat. There will be no guests, no catering, no landing pads, and if anyone steps on my land tomorrow, they'll meet cameras, a locked gate, and the sheriff if necessary. She paused, then offered the kind of reply that smelled faintly of threat dressed as civic concern. We'll note your refusal in our community impact report. She hung up. I hit record on my desktop mic and read the exchange aloud like evidence. Something told me this would not end with manners. At 7:30 the next morning, the gravel sang. A white catering van, a black utility truck, a silver SUV rolled up like a small, badly cast parade. A man in an orange vest waved through my gate, assumed invitation in his grin. I spoke through the intercom. State your purpose. He said they were prepping for the governor's visit, Sierra Lead Events tent, catering rig, mobile restroom, the works. The work order they handed me listed my address, but my name had been replaced with Glade Hospitality House. No signatures, no legal paperwork. I unlocked the outer gate, not to let them in, but so I could walk out and make things real. Boots, jeans, a t-shirt that read, "Not my problem." The crew looked like men trying to pay rent. You've 90 seconds to turn around, I said. They packed up fast, embarrassed. Gravel flew. They left. I stood there, cold air in my lungs, thinking that would be the end. It wasn't. At 10 o'clock, Karen arrived herself, matte Audi heels, an entourage of clipped smiles. She pushed a dossier through the gate, a thick Community Rights and Access Memorandum, 1992. Wax seal printed signatures that looked suspiciously identical. In civic emergencies, bordering properties may be used for community needs, she proclaimed. The clause was written wide enough to mean anything if you squinted hard enough. I tore the paper into pieces, quartered it like autumn leaves, and let it fall. She left in a sniff of Chanel and calculation. By noon, the sheriff cruisers pulled up. One deputy I didn't know, the other I did, Sergeant Bill Maroro, the kind of man who seems born to trivial authority. He smiled like a vice. Afternoon, Michael, he said. We thought we'd come by and clear things up. He suggested gently that maybe I could be neighborly and let a couple of staff freshen up. He called it a courtesy. I called it coercion. I filed incident reports, saved footage, emailed my attorney, Julia. Julia was a machine. She pulled county record zoning maps and within hours confirmed what I suspected: my parcel had been explicitly excluded from Summit Glade expansion. Private reserve, no HOA jurisdiction. She drafted cease and desist, prepared complaints for the DA, and told me to breathe as she set traps. Let them dig, she said. The bigger the hole they make, the cleaner the victory. They dug. At 3:51 a.m., my security pinged someone at the south gate. A figure in dark clothes tried the latch, then melted into the trees. The windbreaker had a Summit Glade badge. I forwarded the clip to Julia. She called it perfect. We filed trespass complaints. That afternoon, I uploaded a 5-minute montage truck's forged memo, Karen's polite menace, the prowler, and it hit. Hard. Within hours, tens of thousands of views, then hundreds of thousands, then 1 million. Forums lit up, law blogs dissected strangers, sent messages of solidarity. An anonymous burner email then dropped a link, internal HOA emails and Slack logs. Screenshots showed planning strategy and a line that made my stomach go cold. If we can get Torrance on board this one time, he's stuck. Set precedent. Intent manipulation plan. Julia amended our complaint: fraud, attempted misappropriation of private property, abuse of process, naming the HOA and board members personally. The media came. The Chronicle picked it up. The HOA website went down. Their Facebook descended into chaos. Someone photoshopped Karen as Napoleon, and the internet laughed until it was mean. The HOA fired back with a sloppy legal threat: defamation, public nuisance. Julia laughed loud enough to wake her neighbors. They were slinging soup at the wall and everything stuck. Evidence piled. A kid named Dylan slipped a folder over the gate photographs. Affidavits, sworn testimony. Summit Glade had tried this on other lots along the border. Some owners caved, others moved away. One family had their permits delayed by a zoning chair whose surprise was related to Karen. Pattern emerged: slow land grab by the language of community and pressure. County code enforcement showed up with a flimsy administrative order signed by a judge, apparently signed because someone had filed an affidavit alleging unauthorized grading. They circled my property like vultures. I let them. Cameras on gate open, not a thing found. We added their empty inspection to the evidence pile: abuse of process. Julia traced that administrative request back to a board member, Eric Bowman. She filed another amendment. Now we had conspiracy and misuse of bureaucratic channels. That's a dicey territory for people who thought bureaucracy would protect them until it didn't. Then something unexpected happened. A man in a blue sport coat, no tie, from the governor's office came by. Off the record, he said the governor's team had never planned local housing at private homes. The state lodge handled logistics. Karen had offered a private property without authorization, and when state staff refused, she doubled down and faked involvement. He apologized quietly. That conversation was the quiet grenade that blew the rest wide open. Courtrooms are strange theaters. At a procedural hearing, the judge asked if Karen denied authoring the forged document. She invoked the fifth. That moment felt like silence stretching into a verdict. The DA filed criminal charges: fraud, tampering with a government document, misuse of emergency services, misdemeanors stacked on harassment. Karen was arrested in her garage, where absurdly the HOA had been headquartered. The board's financials leaked. Karen had billed HOA funds for PR, legal consultations, and even $2,800 in landscaping for a governor-appropriate backdrop on a property she didn't own. Board members resigned. A court-ordered auditor froze spending. Sergeant Maroro was placed on leave pending investigation. Emails showed coordination, pay to delay zoning tricks, and sudden convenient administrative complaints. Julia handed these to the DA and offered pro bono help to other victims. The pattern was no longer local drama, it was a case study in weaponized civility. We settled the civil suit within a week. They paid damages, agreed to public apologies printed in the local papers, and the HOA fell under state oversight. I didn't want to publicly relish the outcome, but you understand the relief. Watching a small-scale tyrant stumble under the weight of her own machinations felt satisfying. I kept my land, rebuilt the gate mat, black steel keypad sensors, and added a little bronze plaque. Private mountain estate trespassers will be prosecuted. I scratched a scratch-through HOA logo into bronze because sometimes you need art that matches the story. I used part of the settlement to self-publish a book Julia nagged me to write, Stand Your Ground: How to Fight HOA Tyranny and Win. It sold more than I expected. People sent stories: a retired colonel in Arizona, a widow in New York, a band of neighbors outside Orlando who'd voted out their Karen. The problem is real, and the remedy isn't only lawyers and cameras. It's people willing to stand together to make bureaucracy uncomfortable when it's misused. If there's a moral, it came not as sermon, but as a small, cold breath the morning after the arrests. Power, even tiny local power, is seductive. Give people a committee and a mandate and they will test edges, then push. Institutions can be hijacked by the petty if nobody pushes back. So check your covenants, read the fine print, keep receipts, and crucially talk to neighbors before you let a committee define community for you. And justice. It arrived in paperwork and headlines, sure, but mostly it arrived in that quiet moment months later when a family who'd been silently pressured drove up, stopped at my gate, rolled down the window, and nodded. No speeches, no applause, just the kind of neighborly recognition that tastes like a small victory and a warning both. So tell me, where do you draw the line between community and coercion? Have you ever been gaslit by a neighborhood committee or used the law to push back, share your story, right or wrong? Was it worth the fight?